So the temple, the tabernacle of David, which is his kingly line, but also because it's the word sukkah, is also the sukkah of David, is also related to Sukkot, and Sukkot, the feast of Sukkot. During this feast of Sukkot, the actual tabernacle was being built. Shows that the temple and the Davidic line, it's all related. Remember, Yeshua is Melchizedek. He's king and priest. He was a priest, and he was called Melchizedek, king of righteousness. So he was king and priest. And so the temple and the Davidic line are kind of, the Levitical thing and the David thing are kind of wrapped up in each other. When David rises, the temple rises, the Levitical priests rise. When the Levitical priests rise, the house of David rise. And in order for those things to rise, the two houses have to come together, because that's the baseless hatred that's stopping it all. Okay? So I won't read through the rest of this. It's all very fascinating. I just want you to get the big picture. Let's move on. So let's have another look at Amos 9. In that day will I raise up the tabernacle of David that is fallen, and close up the breaches thereof, and I will raise up his ruins, and I will build it as in the days of old. Now this is what the rabbis say about that. And this is a photocopy from the Chumash Book of Haftarahs, the Gutnick edition, according to Chabad, by Chaim Miller. And it being a Jewish book, it'll probably be embossed and it'll look really cool. And let's have a look at what they say about this verse. So they interpret it. So it might be hard to read, but I'll read it for you. As it says here, in that day. If we read here, it says, on that day, and then they put in brackets, when the wicked are punished. So that's when they're saying that day is about punishment of the wicked. I will erect David's fallen sukkah, and they put in brackets, that is, the fallen Davidic monarchy. That's their words. So they're saying that the tabernacle of David is related to the Davidic monarchy. I will build its broken walls, and then in brackets, caused by a split into two kingdoms, the house of Israel and the house of Judah. Isn't that amazing?
Wow.
Isn't that amazing? And this is their own words. You know, erect its ruins, and they say in brackets, status during exile. So the temple's in ruins, and so are the two kingdoms. And rebuild it as it was in former times. The monarchy will be such that the Jewish people who are called by my name, and in brackets the people of God, will inherit the remaining peoples of Edom. So this must occur before the tribulation, because at the end of the tribulation Edom is destroyed. But there's a remnant of Edom that is called by his name. And all the other nations to be their servants, says God, who will carry out this promise. Can you see how big God's plan is? And that we're going to see some stuff, because God's already awakening us. And, Kansas is going bye-bye. Things are... That's a quote from The Matrix. Anyway, it doesn't matter. This just shows you... So I wasn't quoting from the Bible. Kansas isn't mentioned in the Bible that I know of. Hold on to your seat, Dorothy, because Kansas is going bye-bye. That's the full quote. Again, I can't tell you what that is in Hebrew, because what was it? Cypher didn't speak Hebrew. Let's go on to the next one. So it's wonderful sometimes to read what the rabbis say. It's actually, though I may disagree with them on some things, I learn more from the people I disagree with than the people I agree with. There's some people I don't want to listen to, like Barack Obama and, Hillary Clinton. But there's other people I disagree with that I find very fascinating. I find what some of the scientists say, what they're discovering about the laws of nature and stuff, and I go, I can see God in all that, can't you? And they can't. But I'm very interested in what they got to say, because they're actually discovering the work of God, but they just can't see it. you know. So let's talk about Amos 9:11. In that day will I raise up the tabernacle of David that is fallen and close up the breaches thereof. And I'll raise up his ruins and will build it as in the days of old. So let's have a look at these breeches. Now these aren't things that you wear. It's not those sort of breeches. It's not breeches. Okay, so in Isaiah 58:12 it says, and they shall be of thee, and they that shall be of thee shall build the old waste places. Thou shalt raise up the foundations of many generations. Because we've been out of the land for many generations. And thou shalt be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of the paths to dwell in. Again, this hasn't been fulfilled yet. So it talks about God restoring the breaches after the fallen tabernacle of David is raised up. So there's going to be someone that's the repairer of the breach. So the restoration of the tabernacle of David is related to the restoration of Israel's waste places, because this next verse is related. So this Isaiah 58, because it's got the repairer of the breach, is related to Amos 9:11, because it's talking about these breaches. And so when the tabernacle of David is being raised up and the breaches thereof in Amos 9:11, what also is occurring at the same time is the old waste places are being inhabited. Okay, so this shows us that the restoration of the house of David is intimately related to the restoration of the lost tribes to the land and building up the old waste places. And then do you know what happens? God comes in, because he comes to the land that's been restored from the sword, to the mountains of Israel. That's where the old waste places are. So the Gog-Magog invasion must occur after the lost tribes return to the land, and before the tribulation, because we possess the remnant of Edom. So let's do a little summary on the phrase David's fallen tabernacle. Et Sukkot David Hanaphalet. The sukkah represents the Davidic throne and kingdom. So that's one thing. It represents the throne. The sukkah represents David's descendants and kingly line. And the sons of David, amongst some of those Orthodox yeshiva bockers, you'll find many of the descendants of David. I'm not saying they're all descendants of David, but they'll be there, the religious of them. The sukkah also represents David himself. David will be resurrected too, and we've read those verses that refer to David. There may be some differences of opinion of exactly when that occurs, but this is all tied up in David's fallen tabernacle. By extension, with the Feast of Tabernacles, because Sukkah of David is related to Sukkot, it is also related to the kingdom and temple worship, and thus the reinstitution of the Levitical priesthood. The restoration of David's fallen tabernacle is related to the restoration of Israel's waste places, and thus to Israel itself. Again, you have to go through this and check those verses out again. And the sukkah is also related to Zion, and thus the church of the firstborn. Because we have come to the heavenly Mount Zion, because that's a throne, that's basically where the king is. So the sukkah is related to Zion, and thus the church of the firstborn. We are a tabernacle temple for the Holy Spirit. So we are intimately related to the heart of David and to David's fallen tabernacle as well. So, of course, we must be restored to the land. And this dispute between Judah and Joseph and between the Jews and Yeshua must come to an end, so that God may re-establish his kingdom to Israel.